to kind of warn people, if you will. What is your evaluation as we sit here kind of mid-May of just what's transpired, right? We don't have to go in tons of detail. People obviously know a lot of this, but just kind of what's your general evaluation of that health crisis?
So, I've tweeted some of this, and I'm writing a bunch of long form stuff, which I will drop at some point. But Act 1 was and is the virus crisis, which is ongoing. Act 2 is the financial crash, and Act 3, I think, is the crisis of our institutions. And I really think that we are in for some crazy stuff. I think I called some of these aspects actually pretty early on, but I think the new political axis, or whether you want to call it trade-off axis or what have you, worldwide, is antivirus and pro-freedom. Okay, so those are kind of like the two poles. You might call it the total state versus market anarchy. Okay, and so what's kind of going on here? So we're in the middle of this huge political realignment where old issues just don't matter as much, and things are rotating, and new coalitions are forming, even if there's some old party labels or things like that. And I think you can identify those two camps as centralization versus decentralization, as modern monetary theory versus BTC, as the state versus the network, as kind of mandatory versus free, and health versus wealth. Okay, it's actually interesting to think of those as kind of opposite poles, in the sense that the state is the actor that is now pushing quarantines, and it's enforcing stay-at-home orders, masks being mandatory, all the type of stuff. And there's a genuine argument for it, in the sense that many presuppositions rather, that people have about, okay, my neighbor can do their thing and it doesn't matter so long as it doesn't affect me, completely break down in a coronavirus world, where if your neighbor is not taking precautions, you very well could get sick. And so you have an interest in their health in a way that you just didn't before. Now, in a sense, arguably that's good, because, okay, well, I have an interest in their health. I will help them stay healthier and keep myself healthier at the same time. You can make an argument from a skin in the game or alignment standpoint that, a community of people who care about each other's health will probably be better. Just like, you're part of a fitness club or whatever, and people lift together, and that's actually good, right? But let's call this one axis, right? The total state. And that's, the lockdown of Wuhan. That is the, surveillance of folks who, with yellow and green and red codes, not just in China, but other places. That's price controls, et cetera. Okay. Now, on the other side is market anarchy. And this is essentially the polar opposite of that. And this is, to caricature it in extremis, it is, don't wear a mask, or I should have the choice as to whether to wear a mask. It is, like the laws are necessarily bad. Everything the state is doing is wrong, et cetera. And, but the good aspect of it is, look, we're going to need to decentralize. We're going to need to encrypt. We're going to need to protect privacy, and we're going to need to have a free market, because the state may protect health at the expense of wealth to such an extent that folks are giving silly orders, to seize masks, to seize hand sanitizer, to impose price controls, to ban people from selling things at Walmart and Target, to stop Uber Eats from doing things. Elizabeth Warren even proposed like banning M&As or whatever over a certain size. Those things have nothing to do with controlling the virus whatsoever, and they're things, and of course, printing trillions of dollars, right? So there's legitimate abuses and failures on the side of the total state that the kind of anarchy pole will correct and push against. And I think either of these two poles is probably bad.